Hi, this will probably be the last of the videos that we'll have for this course. And I just wanted to compliment you all. It's been quite a change we've been through. And I had to learn a lot on how to make a system. And I know you were not used to the idea of taking an online class. So I think all in all, we've done well. This video is going to be about the paper. Okay, the paper is an argument paper, which means it's just like what we've learned already about arguments, and that there has to be a premise and a conclusion. Okay, so the paper has 4 parts, and I'd like to have you type the paper double space, and of course you can do it in oh boy, you can do it in Canvas. So basically, part 1 is really not intended to be an argument. First of all, make sure you don't choose euthanasia as your paper topic. The topic can be any of the other ones that I've listed on the explanation. Or if you want to do something else, you should clear it with me before you go ahead. At any rate, like I said, the paper is an argument paper. And essentially what you're going to be doing is, in part 1, you're going to be introducing your topic. What is the paper going to be about? And there's no argument there. You just are providing information about your topic. Clarify your topic. Explain perhaps why it's important, and so forth. And then parts 2 and 3 will have arguments. The premises and conclusions. So part 2 is where you state your own position on the topic. Let's say if you are writing about gay marriage and you don't like gay marriage, then in part 2 you should state your view, you don't like gay marriage, and then give reasons why you don't. And so part 2 is an argument. You have a premise, which is the reasons for your conclusion, and the conclusion. In this case, that you don't like gay marriage. So you need to have several arguments, or in other words, several premises that would support your conclusion. Several reasons why you think gay marriage is bad, or if it can be the other way too. And so then in part 3, this is a little tricky, but I think you can get it. Part 3 is also an argument, but it's an argument the opposite way. In other words, what you're going to do is say something like, well, there are people who favor gay marriage, and here's the reasons why they believe that it is bad. Okay, and so you present their argument very honestly, very carefully, and don't bias it. Don't do a straw man where, straw man is where you make up a weak argument and claim somebody else is saying it. You don't want to put words in people's mouths. So you need to present the opposing arguments fairly. Okay, and then that's part 3. And then part 4 is where you complete your paper, where you take another argument, and this time you're arguing against the position that opposed you in part 3. Okay, in other words, part 1, you explain your topic and clarify what you mean by the topic. Part 2, you present an argument that you believe is correct, that supports your position. Part 3, you present an argument or two that you actually would disagree with. And then part 4 is you address the arguments in part 3 and show why that you don't think they're right. Okay, so you could think about it as part 1, explanation of what you're talking about. Part 2, argument about what you favor. Part 3, argument against what you favor. And Part 4, argument where you meet the challenges of Part 3. So I hope that's reasonably clear. You can read the description read the explanation in the information that I have online, and also you can read the example that is presented, and you'll note how he or she wrote the paper and followed exactly the way I wanted it made or written. Part 1 was simply clarifying the position or what issue was that the paper would be about. There is no argument in Part 1. In Part 2, then he or she presents the position that he or she believes is correct. And then Part 3, we have counter arguments that go the other way, opposite to what the writer believes. And then Part 4 would be where you address the arguments in Part 3 and show why you're right and they're wrong. And one of the things you have to do that some people don't do is in Part 3, there's some topics that will come up and some points that are being made, and that you, the writer, have to address those specific points in your conclusion in Part 4. So I hope that does the job. If not, send me an email and I'll try to clarify it. The paper should be about 3 pages, double space, and that you should identify any material that you use from somewhere else. If you want to use somebody else's beliefs, that's fine, but you have to identify who said that and who the author is. And you also are not allowed to quote. You simply paraphrase. You simply restate what the person is saying and put it in your own language, and make sure that I know where it came from, whether it was a website or a library or whatnot, and do that in parentheses right in the text, just the way you see in that paper. So I hope that makes it easy enough. I'm not really hung up on footnotes. I don't really think footnotes have much to do with critical thinking, but I do want to know when you are using somebody else's thinking. Perfectly fine to use other people's thinking, but you have to identify that that's what you're doing, and then put what their observation is in your own words, and do not quote. I don't want any quotes in the paper. So I hope that's enough to clarify the paper. If it isn't, write me an email and I'll try to help you out.